Well, welcome back to the Discover Fort Smith podcast. My name is Josh Bufink. I'm with the city of Fort Smith, and filling in for my usual co-host, Emily Horn, is Ashley Backert, the executive director at the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
You guys are stuck with me a little bit longer.
No, we're so glad that you're here. And today we get to interview Tom Kirkham with Kirkham IronTech. Thank you so much for being here, Tom.
That's absolutely my pleasure.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in Fort Smith?
Well, I am CEO and founder of Kirkham IronTech, and what we do is what's known in the business as a managed security services provider and IT managed services.
Okay.
And we provide basically IT and cybersecurity to small to medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're their outsourced IT, and we do larger business too, but it gets into a different deal. But we're outsourced IT and cybersecurity.
Is it solely in Fort Smith, or do you guys have a bigger footprint than that?
We are more of a regional player, but we have installations from New York to Hawaii and few outside the country, like Mexico, Canada. I think there may be some endpoints in China.
Wow.
How did you get into this? Like, I'm always interested when people tell me their IT and cybersecurity, I think is just kind of blowing up and you hear more about it. But like,
hot topic.
Hot topic. How did you get into this?
Well, it's two or three different things. So I started the company out of necessity. I was the second in charge at a software company in town, which is unusual, especially 25, 30 years ago. And the dot-com bust came. And I got laid off. I have no college degree. I'm in Fort Smith, Arkansas, not exactly known as the high-tech capital of the world, and couldn't get a job. Yeah. So I started the company. Oh. And over the years, it was, we'd do anything at first, software programming, website, IT stuff. And then over the years, it just kind of grew more and more. And managed services came around where we put tools on there and we monitor and proactively manage the equipment, and start really engaging with the businesses and becoming a part of their team. It's not just call us up when it's broken. We're going to replace the stuff before it's broken. Yeah. And about 10 years ago, I was visited by an FBI agent that walked into the office and said, "I'm looking for Tom Kirkham."
And you're like, "I don't know him."
It's funny.
They knew he was already in the building.
Yeah, it was one of those weird holidays. It was like July 3rd, and we had kind of closed on that Friday. I think it was a Friday. And so it was me and the president of the company. He wasn't president then, but it was just me and him in the office. And when this FBI agent walks in, and he's blue jeans and a polo shirt. I think it might have been a Razorback shirt. And he goes, "I'm so-and-so with the FBI. You're in trouble, but not with us." And so I found out I was on an ISIS kill list.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, was that ever on your bingo card? I'd be like, fun fact.
I had no idea that it was going that direction just now, but that's not what I thought.
So we had, cybersecurity kind of became a thing about that time, and they didn't know how I got on the list. It was a weird list. There was a bunch of other lists that made sense why these people were on there. They were usually law enforcement or military political targets, right? But there was one list that was random, people all over the United States. Well, long story short, I found out that I was on that list only because of a data breach. And they had the United Cyber Caliphate was their kind of our NSA for ISIS. That was their hacking group. And they had hacked a database from Sun Microsystems, who's gone out of business, but back in the dot-com days, that was what you bought.
Yeah.
That was the servers and the equipment. Everything from Sun was first class. And I had attended a private demonstration or preview of some new technology they were coming out with, so they had all my personal information in case it leaked, and that was the database they stole. That was it. There was nothing in my background. Nothing had to do with it. And so that gave me a passion for cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And so primarily what I do these days is the CEO. I don't do the executive as much.
Yeah.
I do the evangelizing.
Okay.
So these days, and for the past 4 or 5 years, I do these continuing education classes for attorneys, accountants, and all of that. Speak to them speak to the groups as well, and I educate them on how you need to take this seriously.
Yeah.
You don't want your client's data compromised. You don't want to end up going out of business, and so it's more evangelizing what you need to do with IT and cybersecurity for your law firm and accounting firm, manufacturers, so on and so forth.
That's great. What are some common missteps or mistakes that people make in regards to cybersecurity?
The biggest misconception that I'm one of the few people that really try to drill this home is the thought that it won't happen to us.
Yeah.
We're too small. We're in the middle of nowhere.
Well, you were on the nicest kill list, so.
Right. There's a perfect example. We're in the middle of nowhere. The list is long. Why would anybody want to hack us?
Yeah.
But the facts are more small to medium-sized businesses get hacked. We have this misconception as a society that it's only, JBS Meat Supply or Sony Pictures Corporation, Colonial Pipeline a few years ago. But in reality, the hackers don't want to be caught like that because that invites scrutiny.
Yeah.
They would rather make 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 here and there and be able to rinse and repeat and not get hunted down by the FBI or whomever, the Interpol or whatever. And that's the realities. So it's a numbers game. It's done at scale and it's volume. They don't know who you are, and they don't really care who you are. Yeah. It's a numbers game. So that's the biggest problem that we have. The second problem is not really appreciating the risk. And that's a CEO level in most companies to where they don't appreciate the fact that they really do need to spend time, money, and energy on protecting their company, their shareholders, their customers, their vendors, all the stakeholders in that organization. And so when we engage with clients, whenever I'm educating people, those are the two big ones.
So do you do more preemptive stuff, or do you ever have to go on the back end and clean up messes that have been? Right.
That's a good question. Yeah. We call that boom, right? Like a security event is boom.
Yeah.
Our specialty is left of boom. Okay. That's proactively, it's a whole lot cheaper and easier and best practices, good management, good leadership to try to stop it in the first place.
Yeah.
Some people, another misconception is, well, I got cybersecurity insurance. Why do I need to spend money on this too? Well, it's like all other insurance. I got life insurance, but I'm not going to go off myself.
Yeah, right.
I got a car insurance, but I'm not going to drive like a maniac. I'm going to fix the wiring in my house, even though I got homeowners insurance in case it burns down.
Right.
Right. Well, it's the same principle. And there's lots of other problems with cybersecurity insurance. I think it's like 30 to 40% of claims are denied because someone checked the wrong box on the application and they said they had something that they didn't, and they're not going to pay.
Right.
So those are some things that we see. It's a culture thing. Security's got to be built into the culture, no matter how big or small your organization may be, and even in your personal lives.
Yeah.
So how are you staying on top of trends? You're educating other people and you're trying to make sure clients are taken care of, but I feel like this is probably a minute-to-minute changing environment. How does that work?
It is. It is a minute. I was just making the comment to a colleague of mine this morning that it's really hard to keep up. I have to do continuing education. So I spend a lot of time looking at threat intelligence, but we have, and many of our clients have, this continuous cybersecurity awareness where every week they get a little 2-minute video to watch, and we score them, and we can track how the company's doing overall, or their company's doing overall. And I have to do those.
Nice.
And even though I have 2 books, I still have to go through the same stuff.
Yeah.
In the educational part of it, it's about more than understanding the scams. it's understanding the big picture and what's really, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry every year. If it was measured,
crazy.
That industry last, I think in 24, depending on the research report, it was $8 trillion or higher globally. And so if that was measured compared to a country's GDP, it'd be the third biggest country on the planet.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's what people have a problem wrapping their head around it. Why did these people hack us? I said, I don't know who you are. They don't care.
Right.
It's not personal.
It's absolutely not. It's a numbers game. You probably were on an email. I got on an ISIS kill list with, I think there were 3,000 or 4,000 people on this database. And so it could be, all the registered attorneys in the state of Texas. Your email's on the list. Well, they're going to use that and send phishing emails out. If 1% convert, right? Marketing term, they get 1% conversion rate out of, say, 100,000 attorneys. They collect $10,000 per victim on average. That's $10 million payday for about a week and a half of work. It's huge, huge industry. I can't overstress that.
Wrong profession. No, I'm just
You
playing.
shouldn't say that out loud. But
FBI,
I thought it,
do not come after me.
So with like AI and stuff like that, how has that changed the game for you?
A lot.
Yeah.
So what's happened, and we actually started getting them right when ChatGPT was released to the public. We got our first one. I think it was a February 23, maybe. Does that sound about right? This email came in from our chief marketing officer to accounting asking for an aged accounts receivable. And it just so happened there was a reason why she needed that. Normally she wouldn't bother with that. It's not in her wheelhouse, nothing for her to worry about. But we were talking about something that it might have some marketing deal on it or something. So it came into the inbox. This is what else you got to be worried about is coincidences because you'll let your guard down. But at any rate, I started looking at it because it did catch my eye. And then you go through this technique called SLAM. You scrutinize the sender, the links, any attachments, and the message itself. And I said, this doesn't sound like her. So I looked at it, and okay, sure enough, it's a phishing scam. But it had her signature at the bottom, and then what jumped out at me is wherever they got the information, it had her as, I think it was marketing director. Well, within the last year, she had become chief marketing officer. So I knew right then that it was a scam. So they scraped LinkedIn or whatever. And so the first thing new hires get is cybersecurity awareness training. And they are advised that the moment they change their LinkedIn profile and update their job, they're going to get phished. And now we were targeted, right? It was worth hackers to invest human time, money, and energy.
Right.
Okay, because keys to the kingdom kind of deal. Well, this particular email was done with AI, and now the same thing with 100,000 attorneys. They can use AI, scrape the data, build out the organization chart, who works for who, and you get an email from your direct boss advising you to do something. Go buy 10 $100 Apple gift cards and send me the numbers. There's a million scams that you can pull, or click on this link, or open this file attachment. And AI now allows that to be done at scale. They don't have to invest human capital in doing research and intelligence gathering on the potential victim.
Right.
So it's changed it a lot. Now, the number had been 95% of hacks are due to human error. Somebody opened up a file attachment. Somebody clicked the link. The human let them into the network. The stuff you see in the movies about hacking through firewalls and all that.
Not.
No, it's psychological. It's a con job, like a one-on-one street con.
Right.
Except it's 1 to 100,000. And they're using these fancy terms that we have, psychological manipulation, social engineering. But at the end of the day, it's just a scam.
Yeah.
And
They're getting pretty convincing. Yeah.
These are pros.
Yeah.
That's another thing about the industry. You know, the days of misspelled words and bad grammar and bad graphics, those are so rare. We pass them around the office just to laugh now.
Yeah.
I mean, they can fool anybody. They can fool me.
Yeah.
On our security awareness training, there's only been one person in the history of the company that scored 100%, and it ain't me.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because the coincidence that I mentioned, I let my guard down. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a 2-minute video telling me everything I did wrong. And it's things I know.
Yeah.
And so you just never know. And my score is pretty good, but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's an interesting, you've got all of the advancements in technology that you have in IT multiplied by military and the cops and robbers side of it. So it's even a faster paced game, to get to your point, than IT itself. And that's hard enough to keep up with.
Right.
So that's why a lot of companies, they may have their own internal IT, but they outsource the security part of it to us, or maybe some other components. It just varies. But it's a different specialty in the good guy side, the white hat side is what we like to say. So there's white hats, black hats, and gray hats.
Explain those to me.
I was about to say, I know white hat. I have an idea about black. What about
the blacks
gray?
are, the black hat's the bad guys, just all out. And then you have the ones that are called gray hat hackers. And sometimes they are ideologist, like the group Anonymous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would consider them a gray hat hacker. They kind of live in both worlds. In other words, they don't necessarily do it for the money. They've got to have a cause.
Yeah.
But they live in both sides.
Oh, okay.
And that's what my 2 books are about, actually.
Oh, nice. So yeah, you brought your books. What are they? What are your books? You're an author too, as well as a CEO.
Yes, I
a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
but not black.
Not black hats. So I'm going to go with not gray either.
So the first one was the Cyber Pandemic Survival Guide.
Okay.
And have you guys seen the movie Leave the World Behind on Netflix?
Yes.
Okay, that's what the world is going to look like in the event of a global cyber pandemic.
Yeah, it freaked me out.
Things that I don't want to dream about at night.
Right. It's not in the movie, it was pretty fascinating on how society is going to collapse.
Yeah, all the Teslas driving. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this book, all the same things we need to do as a society to prevent that from happening is the same thing you need to do to prevent yourself from being scammed by a plain old ransomware hacker. Right. And so I wrote this book first to small business owners. This is not for, it's not my peers. I didn't write it for my peers. I wrote this for layman's terms and, kind of.
Thank you, by the way, because IT comes into my office sometimes. I'm like, I need you to dumb this thing down. I don't know what you're talking about right now. So I appreciate when people like yourselves can put it into perspective for like, that's just not my love and passion. So you put it in a way that I can.
Yeah, I want you to do what your love and passion is. I want you to be the best. When I don't try to practice law. I don't do my own accounting.
Yep.
I want to be the best. I want them to be the best.
Yeah.
And let us take care of that. Let us take that off your plate. And but at any rate, the second book was about it's called Hack the Rich. And this is about the special needs of high net worth individuals. And these are CEOs, business owners, typically, family businesses. I've dealt with a lot of them over the years, and you have special considerations because there's a target on your back. If you end up on a list of I don't know, just it could be anything that would indicate that, could be car registrations. You're driving a G-Wagon and an S-Class is in the garage. Well, you're going to be on that list.
Yeah.
Or home sizes, it just depends. And you're going to be on that list, and you do have special needs, and you've got to realize that they will do things like pig butchering, which is a way to scam people. But pig butchering can actually happen to anybody because they're doing those things at scale too. But at any rate, both of these books have a fictional component to it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep the reader's attention because presumably someone like you is going to, if you can, I think we did a really good job of, explaining it in layman's terms, keep it interesting. But I wanted to have a story to illustrate the points. Exactly. A parable. Cybersecurity parable.
I love that.
And so their same character, Gray Hat Hacker, is in both books. And when my writing partner and I started working on a third book, and we were going to tie it to leadership and management principles and security and IT management, right? And as we started, I said, I want to really jazz the story part up. And one thing led to another. So here we are a couple of years later, and we're pitching a movie script now.
Oh,
and it actually has a setting in Fort Smith. There's a component early in the movie that it goes back to the 70s, tying into the celebration next month, I think, for the 50th anniversary of the I don't know what they're calling it, but when all the Southeast Asians came here. And that's a core piece of how this thing came about, this story came about.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you got to choose who was going to play the lead in this movie,
that's a good question.
Who would you choose?
Well, the bad guy.
Besides me. I'm sorry. Just kidding.
Well, this is in my dreams. This is in my dreams, right? So the bad guy, I'd love to have Rami Malek do it, Mr. Robot.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that did that. The good guy.
I think of him as Freddie. Wasn't he Freddie Mercury? Too?
Yeah. And he was in the last James Bond movie.
Yeah.
And he's just an incredible actor. Of course, Mr. Robot is, and this film is, it's kind of like a cross between Mr. Robot and Breaking Bad, if that makes any sense. Ooh. So, but at any rate, it's, obviously hadn't started filming yet. Well, we've got some of the crew, I think, signed up.
Who would you pick as the good guy? Sorry, because we lost that one. We know the bad guy. Who's going to be the good guy?
We don't know. I don't know who that is.
You don't have that one in your mind yet?
No. I really don't.
Dennis Quaid has spent some time here.
That's true.
Rami Malek could actually do the good guy too. Ooh. Yeah, but I think he's such a good bad guy.
Yeah. So, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the movie script is that. So that's what the book evolved into.
Right.
Movie?
Yeah. We just said, well, we'll just stick the book on the back. I mean, the non-fictional stuff. We'll put it on the back burner.
Okay. So that book was about. You said it's about innovation and leadership strategies that you've learned. What are some of those things that you've learned?
Well,
as in the IT field.
That's a really good question. Thanks for that. I go back to a Peter Drucker quote, right? And culture eats strategy for breakfast. You guys know that. I see heads nodding. That's great. I love that. And we spend so much time in our company on culture because when you're fast response and everybody's got to be good, we can never make a mistake when it comes to security. And you don't have time to plan all the processes and systems and policies.
Right.
And if you've got a really, really strong culture, you can overcome many, many other deficiencies. Now, I'm not saying it's a replacement for that. But when you walk into our office, there's a genuine belief and practice of servant leadership.
Yeah.
And that my job is to serve everybody there, and everybody else's job is to serve everyone else. And you can walk in and you can just see it happening all over the place. I frequently go in and I ask people, I don't care if they're an intern or it's the president or whatever, what can I do to help you? You need a wheel greased? Do you need money? What can I do? Not much, but what can I do to help out? And we all mean it.
Yeah.
And so it's that culture thing about instilling it. So often a good example of a good management, but a bad leadership decision Going back to cybersecurity. You listen to me do an hour CLE. Okay, Tom, you got me convinced. I still think it's not that big of a threat, but you're convincing me. I'm going to change our ways and get security awareness training and whatever else you've talked about. And then they will exempt themselves from the security awareness training. So you made a good management decision, but that's not good leadership.
Yeah.
You're not walking the talk, man.
Yeah, what's that communicate?
Yeah, how seriously do you think your people are going to take it if you go, I'm too smart,
Yeah.
Or my time's too valuable.
My time's too valuable. They're not going to fool me, and I've heard them all. And you've got to not only do it, you've got to believe in it. And we're fortunate. We try really hard. We do about as much interviewing prospects to take them on as they do us to buy our goods and services. Because we know that if there's a really bad culture fit, it's not going to be a healthy relationship, because we want to be that integral part of their company. I mean, you think about this, and everybody watching this, think about this. What other department in any company of any size is more integral to running your business properly? It's IT. Depending on the size of your company, I promise you, every day someone's engaging with IT.
Yeah, emails,
that's if everything's working
computers.
right.
Yeah.
And so we know when Susie's out on maternity leave, or Bill is sick, and we know that John is cranky John. We know all of that stuff. And so it's really important to us with our clients is to really become a part of that management team. What are your long-term goals? What are you trying to do as a company, and how can we serve you to help you realize it?
Are there times when it's not a fit between you all and the company?
Absolutely. Sometimes we learn it after the fact.
Yeah.
And then we, part ways.
Yeah.
We try to filter that up. It's very expensive for us to ramp somebody up.
Yeah.
So we don't want to it's like making a bad employee hire.
Yeah.
If it's not a good fit, you don't want to hire them because you're going to waste a lot of money. And so we do employees, we try to filter those out. And so especially, I hate to say it this way, but it's not uncommon for really small companies to view IT they view IT as an expense, and cybersecurity as it only happens to the good guy or the bad guy. I mean, the big guys. And if we can't somehow engage and educate them to kind of twist their brain around to wait a minute, IT is an investment.
Yeah.
And cybersecurity is to keep you from going out of business or getting sued. There's law firms now that specialize in class action lawsuits. The moment a breach happens, they're already making phone calls to the victims. Hey, I'm launching a class action suit against the law firm, that was breached or whatever. And if we can't get them to see that, which is really our failure, okay? And but we try our best. Let's reframe this discussion, and you need to think about this as realizing the investment in IT, and it's not about the cheapest. We know what the benchmarks are in your industry, and if you're spending half of what your peers are spending, you've got things missing. You've got gaps, and you're probably not as profitable being cheaper. And on security, you've got gaps in security. So, that's real easy. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
So if we can't convince somebody to look at that way, we try not to bring them on.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
So you talk about the relationship with clients and that culture piece and wanting to fit into their culture as you're building out your own team's culture with your own workforce. And obviously kind of coming back into being in Fort Smith, how are you attracting this top-level talent and convincing them that Fort Smith is a place, or the River Valley region is a place that really they should be for this type of work?
Well, that's a great question, but there's a lot of smart people in Fort Smith.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they live here. And we occasionally outsource to people from all over. Our chief marketing officer's in Honolulu, but she's here. She was from here. She moved. Yeah. She worked for us and then moved to Honolulu.
Oh, wow.
But no, there's a good, talented workforce here, professional IT people, and we get a lot of people out of UAFS, and because I like to grab them right out of college and say, okay, everything you learn there, now you're going to learn. Here's the real world.
Yeah.
And
you can kind of shape them culture-wise.
Right. And hopefully, even if it's just as an intern or, they decide I want to go to work for a bigger company. Some people are more cut out for the way we work, and then there's others that are cut out for that corporate environment. Nothing against them. I mean, us and ArcBest over the years have traded people back and forth.
Right.
Just because, it's a different environment. And that's cool. And we respect that. But there's a lot of companies with their own IT staff and, big ones and small ones. And we've just really never had a problem.
Yeah.
So, and as we grow, as I mentioned earlier before the show, we're looking at growing our footprint and buying up some others in the region. And our intentions are to centralize a lot of it, though, right here in town.
Yeah. Why? So you could go multiple other places.
Right.
Sounds like. Why stay here in Fort Smith?
Yeah, that's a good question. 30. I was thinking today, how long have I lived here? So I spent most of my life as a kid, and I went to college at Fayetteville twice, and still then I went to UAFS. That was my third attempt at going to college, and anyway, I never finished. Jobs and business kept getting in the way, but I lived in Fayetteville twice, Hot Springs, Mena, Waldron as a kid. High school, I lived there for a couple of years. Hot Springs, I don't know if I mentioned that, but in Florida and some other places, growing up. But most of it's been in western and northwestern Arkansas. So I knew all about the Ouachita Mountains and the Ozark Mountains and all of this, and so it came up that I had to leave Fayetteville and go to Fort Smith for a job, and I kind of just grew to appreciate Fort Smith a lot more, especially as they really started investing in the quality of life here. And the first thing was the streets. You guys don't remember, but the streets were horrible.
No idea. I mean,
anybody that
complained,
the people that live here and complain to me about the streets, I said, you haven't been around much. Yeah. We've got great streets. We got a lot of parks. I understand that the airport only currently flies to Dallas, but if you need a New York City fix, I'm going to Manhattan in a couple of weeks. I'm going for the weekend. You just go to Dallas, go to LaGuardia. There you are. It's right there. And at the same time, it's 10 minutes for my office or my home to pretty much anywhere in town I want to go. Yeah. And the streets are nice. The climate is nice. I'm sure I'd love it if it was Honolulu climate, but but it's not. And the change of seasons is nice.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, it's a whole lot worse places. And I don't mean that as a diss. I mean, it sounds like I'm kind of saying, who wouldn't want to live in Hawaii? But it's a great location, and the city and the area has just gotten better and better and better over the years.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see even more growth with the Foreign Military Sales Pilot Training Center that's here, and various other industries that have moved in even over the past decade to come here. So
right, and I know of some others that are looking at centralizing a lot of stuff here, and it's that. The growth that's in Northwest Arkansas, it's exciting and all of that. And I get that. But we don't have the traffic problems. They can't keep up with it. Too much growth can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Austin ran into that. That was one of their big things is they just grew too fast. Infrastructure couldn't keep up.
Right. And so, Fort Smith's got a low beta, as far as like home prices and things like that. You know, they don't shoot up and go through the roof because of demand, and then when it crashes, it's a catastrophic collapse. You know, the prices go up a lot. They don't go up nearly as fast, and they don't crash nearly as low. That's a great deal. What's great from businesses is the low cost of living.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if Fort Smith's too expensive for you, we all know people that live in Van Buren or Roland and whatnot, because it's still a little bit cheaper. But I would say for me, I'd always live in the city. I just love being in town, closer.
Connected, yeah.
But even if you live inside the city limits, it's still remarkably low standard of living, especially for a town that, you know, especially if you're listening to this from out of state and you're not familiar with the area, you probably are going to tend to say, well, that's a southern state. But here in this area and Northwest Arkansas, it's really more of a Midwestern vibe. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I always felt like it was much more similar to that culture than it is to even,
South.
Little Rock or even Pine Bluff or Alabama, Mississippi, whatever. And so it's more of a Midwestern vibe here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing as well. I love Chicago, Kansas City, all of those cities. So So there's many reasons. It would have to be a very, very weird thing if I were to change where the headquarters of the company is.
Yeah.
But you're right, I could be anywhere.
Well, we're glad that you're here, that you've chosen to set up shop and stay here.
Yeah.
What is one story or experience or something that you feel truly embodies the community spirit of Fort Smith? I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I didn't get the full story.
Right. So when Fort Smith was competing to get the U.S. Marshals Museum here, because a lot of people don't realize there's more U.S. Marshals buried. What is it? What's the cemetery there on
Arlington?
No, here in Fort Smith.
Sorry, the Fort Smith National.
No,
Cemetery?
Is it Oak? It's on Greenwood Avenue.
Oh, Oak Cemetery.
Yeah. I think this could be wrong, but there's more U.S. Marshals buried in that cemetery than anywhere else in the country.
Oh, that's cool. Well, the parks director is going to be here soon, and we'll ask her.
Yeah, verify that. And so I'm not a historian.
Yeah.
So, but and then you realize, you get all the Judge Parker stuff, and that national park is just incredible if you've never visited it. I was one of those people, lived here 20 years and finally went, and I'm going, holy cow, this is here.
Yeah.
And but back then, we're still using this old Wild West thing, which is cool. I don't think that's the be all end all. And the projects like the art project downtown,
Unexpected,
that was a great change. High tech companies now, more and more foreign military sales, fighter jets, drones.
Yeah,
military drones. It's getting more high tech. It's not a furniture manufacturing town like it was in the 40s and 50s. But anyway, getting back to your question, it was really amazing how quickly these people from all different walks of life. It wasn't just a visitor convention bureau, and it's just a lot of people that wanted to, let's get this here. This is something. This is a big project.
Yeah. And
we can build an iconic building on the river, something that could potentially be our St. Louis Arch.
Yeah.
And so it was really something to watch the whole community come together and to really pitch this to the steering committee or whatever it was to bring it here to Fort Smith, and we pulled it off. And it was everybody pitching together. It wasn't a bunch of little fiefdoms over whatever. Everybody was working together to try to do the best and contribute whatever they could to it. And that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
That was really, especially when we were successful at it. So
what's it like, being at the beginning stages of that and now seeing the U.S. Marshals Museum as it stands?
It's like, is this thing ever going to get built for a while?
Yeah.
The fundraising part of it was maddening.
Yeah.
And but they stuck to their guns, didn't really compromise into fulfilling the vision. There were some other rocky moments off and on over the years, but I don't know. Believe me, my little part was practically nothing. In fact, the only reason that I was even a speaker, and I did a bad job, but the only reason I was even a speaker at one of the meetings was I had founded the City Wire, which ended up being bought by Talk Business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I was a co-founder of that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was publisher and co-founder. And I think I was involved with that then at the time. And so I was a little bit more civic minded and things like that. But it's nice.
Yeah.
But there were hundreds of people involved with that. I mean, it wasn't just 20, 30 people. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's something I feel like the whole community can be proud of, the Marshals Museum. And honestly, it's where I tell people to go check out. It's like one of the first things I tell people to check out if they're coming to visit, like go check out the Marshals Museum.
More and more we hear from visitors, they're like, you see the exterior, you pull into the parking lot, you see the exterior, great, it's a pretty building, but like you don't get a vibe. And then the moment you step through the doors and you start going through it, people are absolutely amazed and blown away. And my dad was in law enforcement and was here, and he got a chance to go, and he's like, the stuff I learned, and I deal with marshals, like, I work at the airport now and stuff, I interact with these guys day in and day out, and it was absolutely incredible for him. So I constantly tell people, I'm like, don't read a book by its cover, because that is that building 100%. There is more to it when you get inside.
Yeah, the building design was controversial. I don't know if it still is, but it was.
I don't think it is. I think it's just people. It just doesn't match. There's that moment of like, what am I going into? I think that's the piece that people kind of get confused on. I love the building though.
Some people wanted it to be totally different and take advantage. I don't know, that era of architecture, and I was like, this could be our arch.
Yeah.
It's very true.
The Parisians hated the Eiffel Tower for 20 years or whatever it was, so you just, I think, grows.
I like the clean lines. I like Frank Lloyd Wright style, mid-century modern, and it's kind of got those really clean, modern line look to it.
Or Faye Jones.
Yeah, Faye Jones. Exactly.
Yeah, there's plenty, there's Faye Jones architecture all over town.
Yeah, it's more local example that I should have used.
Well, I think that he wasn't Frank Lloyd Wright. I know he was at least an inspiration, but I think he trained under him, right? Yeah, okay. And but I'll be in a neighborhood that I hadn't driven down a street, and I go, that's a Faye Jones house. It's kind of neat. They just pop up in unexpected areas.
Yeah.
So you're pretty well traveled. You're about to go off and go up to New York and do those things. When you have clients that come into town, where are you taking them? Like, where are you suggesting people go and visit in Fort Smith?
Oh, well, we rarely have clients come in, but we, of course, local restaurants. And nobody wants to come. You don't travel and go to Chili's, right?
Unless you eat the fast
don't
meal
even
with
ask
the kiddos.
Me to take you to Chili's, right? Yeah. But we try local restaurants, and we have all of this Southeast Asia food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is weird for a little town to have that much to choose from.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true, but it feels like it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet you per capita, the city has more Southeast Asian restaurants than any other city.
That would be interesting. I wonder if
I'm going to look into that.
Yeah.
Let's throw that into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
When I first moved here, that population was the largest minority.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's unusual. I mean, but I would say it's right up there with San Francisco or New York as far as, the presence of the Southeastern Asian community.
Yeah.
And so that's...
Before moving here, I had never had pho or banh mi before. And I mean, I'm sold. I love our pho options here. Mm-hmm. Pho Vietnam's one of my favorite places. It looks like a little gas station right off of Rogers. Have you ever been there? It's like that little gas station just right off Rogers, kind of close to North Side. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, but there's a lot of there's Indian now. There's a lot of Indian places now, and I ate at a Salvadoran restaurant the other day.
Yeah.
Right there at the intersection of 10th and 11th and Midland. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new owner there, by the way.
Oh, I haven't had that. Yeah, it's like a pupuseria or something, right there.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
It was good.
I probably
it was
said it
really
wrong,
good.
so.
Yeah, but it just depends on what if it's family or what they're interested in, because you got the U.S. Marshals Museum, the cemetery, the National Cemetery, the National Park downtown on the river there that goes through. There's Fort Smith Museum of History. There's a regional art museum here. But then there's so much natural beauty that's within 20, 30 minutes. In fact, Sunday I was on Lake Fort Smith in a kayak.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful park. It's a well-run, nice facility. I was part of the Citizens Academy. Do they still do that? You guys still do that?
We don't do a Citizens Academy. We do a Citizens Police Academy.
Okay.
But not just the Citizens Academy for the citywide. But that is something that I'm interested in.
Yeah. Well, I was on the first year that it was Tracy Winchell that did that.
Yeah.
I was one on the first year, and they had just almost opened Lake Fort Smith because it used to be 2 lakes and a lot smaller and all of that. So I got a tour of the facility and many other, the police department, fire department, and street department. That's another thing, gave me a fine appreciation for, this background of people. They're
Bless you.
Huh?
Bless you so much for using your time, I think, to dig in. Josh and I both, Josh is with the city and I'm a subset of, and, we talk about all these things with citizens, or we hear from citizens so often. And the fact that you dug in so early and just learned
wanted to understand
and wanted to see things and took advantage of those opportunities. I wish more residents were like that, because I think your appreciation is so much more because of that. And it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Do I have problems with some of the city departments? Yes. But no cities run perfectly. It doesn't matter what it is. But it's not a big building full of bureaucrats. They actually have jobs and they're important.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to, you feel that.
No, I do want to say thank you. Whenever I come across residents that I think go in and truly try and understand the community that they're in, if they have those issues, I understand. I have my own issues with things that are happening, but the fact that you just took that time, I am very much a person that I want to say thank you for doing that.
Well, it was.
Say you're welcome.
But
thank you.
But it was the academies.
Yeah.
That was a good way to kind of streamline it. Now it was a commitment, 2 hours for once a week for 10 weeks or something like that, 12 weeks, but it was like, wow, I had no idea the street department did all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea the water department was so huge.
Yes.
I mean, and it just so happens this last house I moved into about 10 years ago, I'd been living in it 2 or 3 months. And this is long after I did Citizens Academy, right? I looked out the front window and there's a city car in my driveway and they're just going up and turning the spigot on my house.
Yeah.
And I walk out and say, what are you doing? And she goes, oh, I'm just getting a water sample. And I go, what? And she goes, yeah, we test the water sample all over the city, and you're one of about 75 or 80 homes that we use.
Yeah.
And I was going, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Once a month, they come and get water out of the outside spigot for my house. It's those faceless bureaucrats in that big building that they're not doing anything deal. That's just a perfect example of that. See, they're thinking about the quality of water all over town, not just what's coming in the mains.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it can be different at my house than it is at your house. And what's the reason for that and all of these different things.
Yeah.
Right.
So, not to keep bird dogging that issue, but I think it's a great city for that. I've got a lot of respect for the police department. Every engagement I've ever had with them has been nothing but professional. And the fire guys, they used our Teslas to do fire training on Teslas.
Oh, cool.
We had clients going down, we're on Old Greenwood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a lot of traffic during the week on Old Greenwood. And we had people calling us, say, because they brought everybody over to our office. Pumper trucks, fire engines.
Everything okay?
Yeah. That was exactly what was happening, because they brought every single firefighter in the city to our office. We did it for 3 days, and I think it was 2 or 3 training programs a day. And so we had them there the whole time, and they were parking down that little dead-end street there. It's Dallas Street, and just all over the place. So it was kind of a spectacle. But you get to see that, hey, these guys are doing more than just playing pool, when there's not a fire. They're getting training on how to deal with a Tesla that's burning, that's caught on fire.
Yeah.
And one of the battalion chiefs just happened to be driving by, knew we had Teslas, and he asked me if we could use them for training. And I said, sure. That's great. I love it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I love it.
That's so cool. Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today and just telling us a little bit about why you love Fort Smith and just all the amazing things that you've done in our community. And I wish you continued success as your company obviously is getting ready to grow even more. So thank you so much for joining us today.
We want the red carpet moment. When your film goes, like, let's figure out the red carpet moment.
And if you need that hero character, you have my information now.
Right. Well, I need a reel. You have a reel? You're on IMDb, I guess.
No. Thank you so much.
Well, that's okay. I want to say, though, that we're looking for some unknowns. This is an indie project.
Yeah.
So, but it really and truly, it's my pleasure to be here. And I just want to encourage everybody that, if you're thinking about moving here, vacationing, starting a business here, hopefully I said some things that would resonate with you. So.
Or connect directly with you if they have questions, especially about starting a business. I love that.
I'm all over the interwebs, and anything like that, it'll get routed to me.
Yeah.
So
just make sure it doesn't look like a phishing email.
That's right. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, my pleasure.